Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Beyond Blood Sugar podcast. I hope you're ready to do a little bit of myth busting today because we're about to challenge something that's kind of been hammered into us for decades. You've probably heard 1,000 times things like carbohydrates are essential. They're the body's preferred fuel choice. Your brain needs glucose. If you don't eat enough carbs, you're going to be sluggish, your metabolism's going to slow down, and you'll probably just collapse into a heap of low energy sadness, right? That's at least what they tell us. Well, most of that is crap and it's not true. Okay. So today we're going to talk about that. I want you to be armed with the knowledge so that the next time someone says, but your body needs carbs, you know exactly how to respond. And not just how to respond for them, but like to truly know it in your heart. Because the truth is, there is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. Okay. It's not opinion, it's basic human physiology. People want to argue that all the time, and it boggles my brain. You cannot argue basic human physiology. What I think they're actually arguing, though, is for their choice to eat carbs. And that's fine. I'm not saying you can't have carbohydrates. All I'm saying is that your body does not need them for survival. Okay. And once you understand that they're non essential, you realize that a lot of the advice that you've been given about food, especially when it comes to blood sugar, energy, weight loss, is completely backwards. So today we're going to kind of tear this apart piece by piece. So, first, we'll define what, quote, essential actually means, because a lot of people throw that word around without really understanding it. And then we're going to dive into how the body functions without carbs, because, spoiler alert, you already have a built in system that makes glucose for you. No bread, no pasta, none of that's required. And then we're going to talk about what actually happens when you stop eating carbs. And if they're so essential, why do people on low carb diets not only survive, but thrive? Why do they suddenly have more energy, better focus, fewer cravings, all the things? Okay. And then finally, we're going to dive into why this myth actually exists. Because trust me, there's a reason we've been told to eat carbs our whole life, and it has nothing to do what's actually best for your health. So, you ready? Okay. So, let's start with what we mean by essential, because again, that word gets thrown around all the time. Essential nutrients, essential vitamins, essential this, essential that. But what does it actually mean? So, in the world of nutrition, essential means that your body absolutely needs it to function. And most importantly, that it cannot make it on its own. So, you have to get it from a dietary source. Okay. If you don't eat it, your body's going to break down, you'll develop deficiencies, your health will decline, and eventually you might die, right? It sounds dramatic, but that's kind of how it works. It's the root of essential. So we have essential amino acids, which come from protein. Your body can't make them. So if you don't eat them, it starts to break down your own muscle. We have essential fatty acids, which come from fat. Without them, your hormones fall apart, your brain function declines, your cells start deteriorating. Okay. So let's ask the big question. Where's the essential carbohydrate? Anybody? There isn't one, not a single one. You could never eat carbohydrates again, and your body will still be able to function just fine. Why? Because your body has a built in backup plan. It's not even a backup plan, but we'll just call it that for now. It has a built in system that makes glucose on demand. It's called gluconeogenesis. So yeah, I know that's a big sciencey word, but it's actually super simple. It literally just means making new glucose. And here's the kicker. Your body's doing it right now, okay? Even if you've eaten carbs today, your body is still running this process in the background as needed. Your liver is constantly taking protein and fat, converting it into the right amounts of glucose and keeping your blood sugars steady if and when it's required to do so, right? And that means you don't need carbs to survive. Okay, let that sink in for a second. We've been told for decades that we need carbs, that they should be the foundation of our diet, right? What is the food pyramid like? 70% carbohydrates. We've been told that without them, we'll lose energy, we'll lose brain function, our metabolism will just go crazy, all the things. but your body already has to make the exact amount of glucose that it needs. So if that's true, and if we don't need to eat carbs, then why does cutting carbs feel difficult at first? Right? Because that's another argument people say. Well, when I cut down carbs, I don't feel very good. It's because, my body must need them. Okay. Why do some people insist that low carb makes them feel icky? Well, this is where things get a little bit interesting because while your body doesn't require carbs, it does get used to burning them. And that's what's been feeding the body its whole life. And burning glucose for fuel is easy. And the body likes easy. Remember, its goal is survival. So if glucose is available, it's going to want to burn it. And it's going to want to burn it first because it's quick and it's easy. But when you take them away, your body has to kind of relearn how to function the way that it was designed to function. Yes, designed to function. Okay. So if carbohydrates aren't essential, again, why does cutting them out feel hard at first? Well, let's just think about that for a minute. Your body is an adaptive machine. It's designed to work with what you give it. And for most people, especially in today's world, we've been feeding it a steady stream of carbohydrates since birth, basically. From the time we were little, we were given cereals and fruit juice and crackers and sandwiches and pasta. We were trained to rely on that quick burning sugar for energy nonstop, right? So when you suddenly take the carbs away, your body kind of sputters a little bit. It's like, wait a minute here. Where's the sugar? Where's my usual fuel at? And for a few days or even a couple weeks, your body might actually struggle a little bit. Doesn't really like it. It's been used to this its whole existence. So you might feel tired. You might feel a little bit foggy. Some people call this the keto flu because your body is shifting away from relying on carbs, glucose, and is starting to use fat instead. And there is an adjustment period. But once that switch fully happens, everything changes. Because here's the real problem with relying on carbs for energy it's a roller coaster. And we've talked about this in detail, right? Think about how you feel after eating a carb heavy meal. Let's say you just eat a big bowl of pasta or a bagel for breakfast. At first, you might feel good, maybe even have a little boost of energy. That's because your blood sugar is spiking. But then what happens next? Your body releases a flood of insulin to bring the blood sugars back down because it doesn't like it high. And in most cases, or not in most cases, a lot of cases, it might overcorrect, dropping you too low. And it might actually not be too low, but it feels that way because your body is probably used to that roller coaster and is used to being high. So then maybe you feel sluggish and tired, and guess what? Hungry again. That's the roller coaster. So what do? You reach for more carbs, you bring the energy back up, and that's the cycle. We've talked about that. This is why so many people feel like they need to eat every few hours to function. It's not because the body needs that constant fuel, it's because their blood sugar is on a never-ending roller coaster controlled by the food that they're eating. So here's where things get a little interesting. When you take carbs out of the equation, your body can finally get off that roller coaster. So what's happening when you take away the carbs? Your body switches fuels. So instead of burning glucose, it starts to burn fat. And that's when everything starts to change. So instead of needing to eat every 2 to 3 hours or even less for some people, your energy starts to become more stable. No more crashes, no more urgent hunger, no more mid afternoon slump. Why? Because fat is a much more efficient and long lasting fuel source. And here's something even more fascinating your brain actually functions better on fat than carbs. It's where ketones come in, right? When your body breaks down fat for energy, it produces ketones, which are a much more efficient fuel source for your muscles and your brain. And guess what? Again, your brain loves ketones. This is why, for so many people on a low carb or ketogenic diet, they say they feel more focused and more mentally clear, more energized. It's not magic. It's just your body working the way that it was designed to work without the constant need for sugar. And this is why people who make it through that adjustment period, which isn't always fun, often say that they'll never go back to eating the way that they used to. Because once you've experienced that true metabolic freedom, you realize just how much of your life was controlled by food, sugar specifically. No more constant cravings, no more feeling like you're a slave to your next sugar hit. You eat when you're hungry, not because your blood sugar is tanking and forcing you to, and not because there's some industry standard that we have to look at the clock and say, oh, it's 7 o'clock, it's breakfast time. Oh, it's noon, it's dinner time. Oh, it's five or dinner, lunch. Or it's, 5, it's dinner time. 7:30 at night, it's snack time, right? When you can move away from that and eat when you're actually hungry, that is powerful, right? Now, does your brain need glucose? Yes. Okay. Yes. There are a few systems in the brain that need glucose. But again, remember what we talked about. The body makes what it needs. So when you are efficiently running on ketones, the body can make the tiny amount that the brain needs. And then the rest of the body and the rest of the brain is soaking up ketones and is super happy. Now, here's where, there's a little bit of breakdown in communication because you have the group of people who, understand enough. They know that the body can run on ketones and that you can fully be in ketosis and all is fine. And then you have the group of people that are like, no, 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 your brain needs glucose. The problem is when you answer, when someone says like, oh, you need glucose, your brain needs glucose to survive, and you say, no, it don't, or no, it doesn't, you can run on ketones, that isn't accurate. So you're not helping the cause. Your brain does need glucose. They are correct. What they don't understand is that the body can make it. Okay. So this is where information is powerful. Okay. Now, if carbs aren't essential and we feel better without them, then why has the entire world convinced us that we need them? And what has convinced the entire world that they need them, right? Why are we told that whole grains should be the foundation of a healthy diet? Why do doctors tell diabetics, people whose bodies literally can't process carbohydrates well, that they should still be eating them all day long? The answer is not pretty, okay? And it has nothing to do with your health. Why are we told over and over again that we need them? Why is every nutrition guideline built around grains and starches? Well, here's the uncomfortable truth. It has nothing to do with human survival, it has nothing to do with what the body needs. It has nothing to do with what's actually best for your health. It has everything to do with profit. So let's take a step back for a second and let's look how the modern diet was built. Okay. Think about the cheapest, easiest foods to produce: wheat, corn, rice, soy, sugar. What do all of these have in common? They're pretty cheap to grow, cheap to process, cheap to package, and incredibly easy to sell in mass quantities. Okay. Bread, pasta, cereal, snack foods. These are some of the most profitable foods in existence. And because of that, they've been marketed to us as essential for decades. The food industry doesn't want you to be eating foods that will fill you up for hours and regulate your metabolism. No, they want you constantly snacking, constantly craving, and constantly buying. Think about it. What's more profitable? A food that keeps you full for hours so you don't have to eat again, or a food that spikes your blood sugar, crashes it, and makes you hungry again in 2 hours? Yeah, right? Now, I know that this might sound like some crazy conspiracy theory, but it's not. I promise you, it's not. The entire low fat, high carb movement that took over in the late 20th century. Oh God, that makes me sound so old. It's like my kids were like, Mom, back in the 1990s. Um, anyway, total tangent there. But anyway, when that whole movement happened, it wasn't based on solid science. That was heavily influenced by the food industry. Because the moment they convinced people that fat was the enemy, what happened? People stopped eating natural fats like butter and eggs and meat, things that had natural fats in it, and started eating more carbs. And the food industry made billions, right? But it's not just the food industry that benefits. Okay. Let's talk about the medical industry, big pharma. Because when people eat a high carb diet long term, what happens? Blood sugar issues, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, obesity, heart disease. What do all these conditions have in common? They're not treated with dietary changes like they very easily could be. No, they're managed with medication. And I don't know about you, but I find it really strange that the very conditions caused by overconsumption of carbs are treated with drugs that allow people to keep eating carbs. Instead of addressing the root cause, we slap a medication on it and tell people eat a balanced diet. Moderation is key, right? Moderation is the lie that kills. Now, I want to be really clear here. I am not anti-doctor. I am not anti-medication. There are amazing doctors out there who truly want the best for their patients, and there are life-saving medications. But the system they work within does not prioritize prevention or reversal. It prioritizes treatment and management. And that is a huge problem. Because here's the thing, if people realized they didn't need carbs, if they started eating in a way that naturally regulated their blood sugar and insulin levels, what would happen to the multi-billion-dollar diabetes industry? It would collapse. And they don't want that. So instead of saying, hey, maybe carbs might be the problem, you get this nonsense about how diabetics need carbs and need medication, and the cycle continues. Okay. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, okay, I get it. Carbs aren't essential. The food industry and medical industry, they benefit from us eating them. But what does that mean for me? What do I actually do with this information? This is where I want you to take your power back because I like knowing this gives you the choice. You don't have to follow the outdated nutritional guidelines just because they've been hammered into your head your whole life. You don't have to eat carbs just because some doctor, dietitian, or fitness influencer said they're essential. You can listen to your body and do your own research. Someone on Facebook uh, today, actually, I was in a Facebook group and they said, it was a diabetes group. My doctor agrees that I eat healthy, and then went on to the rest of it. I don't remember what the rest of it said. And it saddens me sometimes to read things like that because, you know, well, one, I don't know what her diet was, okay, but I gleaned enough from the information that was there that it probably wasn't the most beneficial for diabetes, right? But her mindset is my doctor says I eat healthy. The issue is that doctors aren't taught nutrition, okay? And this is the big disconnect. This is where self-empowerment has to happen and you have to do your own research. Doctors are not taught nutrition, they're taught medicine, okay? This is where you can empower yourself. Pay attention to how you feel. If you constantly feel tired and sluggish or controlled by food, try cutting back on the carbs and see what happens. Because at the end of the day, you are the one living in your body. And once you understand that you are not dependent on carbohydrates, or you don't have to be anyway, you can start making choices that actually work for you and work for your body. And that is true metabolic freedom. Now, again, some of you might be thinking, okay, I get it, makes sense, but do I have to give up carbs completely? The answer is no. Here's the thing. This doesn't have to be about extremes. This is about understanding how your body responds to carbs and making adjustments that actually work for you. Some people feel amazing on low carb or keto. Others do great with a more strategic, like carb cycling approach, which I love. I love cyclical keto, where they use, carbs intentionally instead of just eating them by default. The key is you don't have to eat carbs just because you're told you need them. You get to decide what works best for you. Okay. So again, we've been told our whole lives that carbohydrates are essential, but they're not. Your body has a built-in way to make glucose, no pasta or bread required. And when you stop depending on carbs for energy, you finally stop feeling controlled by food and you stop the roller coaster. You're no longer a slave to the next snack and the next meal. You're not constantly fighting cravings. You actually get to feel what it's like to have real, sustainable, and stable energy without needing to eat every few hours just to function. And once you experience that, most people never go back. So if today's episode was an aha moment for you and you found yourself thinking, wow, I've never thought about it that way or I never understood it that way, then please share this episode with someone who might need to hear it because we need to start changing the conversation around food, metabolism, sugar, carbs, what the body actually needs. And if you want more content like this, make sure that you are subscribed Let me know what you want to hear because trust me, we are just getting started and I'm so looking forward to this journey with all of you. So thank you for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you next time on Beyond Blood Sugar.